Hey guys, it's Kevin. It's another movie for you guys, and this, of course, is going to be the first official 2018 movie review. I mean, technically Insidious was, but I'm talking about in terms of new releases. This, of course, will be the first one, and this is a film that I was very much looking forward to for a while now. I definitely was hoping it could be one of the gems of, one of the hidden gems of January, and I have, in fact, gotten a chance to see it, and that, of course, is the sequel to the 2015 film Paddington 2. And what Paddington 2 is essentially about is we center on, of course, Paddington, and in this film, he's focused on his his very old Aunt Lucy, who he wants to get a birthday present for, and, he tries to get her this storybook, basically, to try in an effort to communicate with her, but things end up going really wrong when there is basically this heist, and Paddington is accused of being involved in this, in this heist mission, and basically throughout the rest of the film, he's now in jail, and the Browns have tried to clear his name, and that's really all I'm gonna say. So, Paddington 2 in general, like I said, I was honestly really looking forward to this movie. The first movie kind of came out of nowhere. It very much did surprise me. I understand it's a British movie and that their target humor is going to be a lot different from American, but the fact that that movie was even decent is a miracle in itself. I mean, considering what most kids' movies, especially ones of classic children's books and, classic cartoons and things like that, what most of them end up being, it was honestly a miracle that was any good. So, I was honestly really looking forward to Paddington 2. I was hoping this could be just as fun, just as enjoyable as the first one, and while I wouldn't say I enjoyed this as much as the first one, I still had a really great time in Paddington 2. I think this is still a very fun kids movie overall. It's definitely different than the first one, which I really do appreciate, but we're just getting into right now, starting off with the cast. And similar to the first movie, one of the best things about this movie, without a doubt, is the cast. I think, honestly, everyone gives it 100% in this movie. I think, honestly, everyone really did a great job here. But let's first talk about Ben Whishaw as Paddington, because you guys already know how much I enjoyed him in the first movie, and he's still just as great here. He's got that childlike, whimsical side to him. He's just a lot of fun to watch. He'll do whatever he can to turn anything positive. I mean, he ends up in jail in this movie, and he actually ends up making it somewhat positive, and he's just so perfectly cast here. And again, I've said this in my first one, but I constantly think back to what would have happened if Ben Whishaw wasn't in this role, and honestly, he's done so much great work in this role at this point that I really can't see anyone else here. I think he's just so dynamic in this role. I think he just does such a great job. He's so fun to watch. He's just a very enjoyable, rootable character, and I definitely really love what we got with Paddington. He was definitely a lot of fun to watch for sure, just like the first one. And then Sally Hawkins and Hugh Bonneville, once again, are definitely really great here. I really do enjoy their role as the Browns. And in this film, you can tell they're now a lot more, especially Hugh Bonneville, they're a lot more accepting of Paddington. They're trying to do what they can to try to clear his name. And they definitely have a lot of fun scenes throughout the film. I thought they definitely did a really great job here for sure. However, easily the standout of this movie is Brendan Gleeson as a character of Knuckles, and this character is just so fun to watch. At first he's just your typical, very gruff, just very sort of tough sort of character who is, in fact, the prison chef, and the way that Paddington kind of tries to turn things around for him and the bond they initially end up striking, it is definitely very surprising, but it's one of the best points of this film. I really enjoyed watching these two bond, especially once he realizes, how great Paddington is at making marmalade. I thought they were just a lot of fun to watch here. I thought their dynamic was great in this movie, and it really does make me wish that Brendan Gleeson, maybe they bring this character back, because he was definitely so much fun to watch. I love where they went with this character overall. He's already a fantastic actor, but he really just brought a lot of new light to this sequel, and I definitely really did enjoy that overall, and I thought he definitely, like I said, was the standout of this film for sure. There are a lot of things I enjoyed about this movie, but their relationship easily was the high point for me. And then the rest of the cast, I thought also was really great. Both of the kids, once again, they both do a really great job. Hugh Grant, let's talk about him, because I'm sure a lot of people are worried about him, because I will very much admit, probably the worst thing about the first movie was Nicole Kidman. I usually like her as an actress, but she was really overdoing it in that film. And Hugh Grant is still very much over the top, but it's a different story because he's more of a stage actor, and you can tell he is very much putting on a character. He's so adamant about getting this one object, and he likes to, you know, kind of dress up in these different costumes throughout the film, and I have to say, he was very entertaining. I really like what we got with him for the most part. This is probably the best Hugh Grant role I've seen in quite some time, which in itself isn't really saying much, because the last Hugh Grant movie I can honestly think of is The Rewrite, which was back in 2015, and he was really good there, but I thought he was even better in this movie. I thought he was definitely a lot of fun to watch, and I think they definitely did a lot of great stuff with him that I very much did enjoy. I think, honestly, everyone did a really good job here. Peter Capaldi is good for what he has. Really, everyone does a good job here for sure, and that's definitely something I will give this film. Now let's get to the directing and the writing, because I will say right off the bat, the directing here is still great. Paul King is, you know, he's the same director who did the first movie, and you very much do feel that way. This feels like it has the same tone, and it does. It's still very endearing, it's still very entertaining, and it's not trying to be anything big. It's, you know, they do kind of up the ante in this one, but the tone is still very much the same. It has that child feel to it. It has that more sort of sophisticated feel that I think the first movie did as well, and it's a lot of fun to watch. I think the comedy here works exceptionally well. I was laughing a lot during this movie, and again, it's because of the fact that they're not just doing all this sort of ribald humor. I know that's not really something that happens in British movies, but I was kind of worried because of how successful the first movie was in America that they would try to Americanize this series, and thankfully they don't do that. They keep it very British, and I'm glad that they did that, because that's what worked about the first movie, and I'm glad to see that they did retain that here. There's also a lot of emotion in this one, especially when it comes to the past between Paddington and his Aunt Lucy, and it's not like sad or anything, but it's the emotional stuff is actually handled really well, particularly some moments in the climax I thought were very well constructed, and I thought the tone in general just worked very well here, just like the first movie, and that's something I very much did enjoy. However, I will say right off the bat, this is a different movie from the first one, and for good reason. I'm glad to see they did take this in a different direction. This one is much more of a detective film where you're trying to figure out who the culprit is. Now, we kind of know who the culprit is, but the whole film, a lot of people said the first film was like a Wes Anderson film. I would say this one especially is like a Wes Anderson film, especially when it comes to the plot line, because the plot line, of course, is Paddington trying to clear his name, and the writing here is definitely very well done in that regard. It's different from the first one. It's not as focused on the family. It's much more focused on Paddington and him trying to, like I said, clear his name, but also make sure that he can get this gift to Aunt Lucy, and I really did enjoy the plotline of this movie. I thought it was definitely a lot of fun to watch, and I like that they took it in a different direction. You know, I don't like sequels that just retread everything, and I'm glad to see this one did it differently, and I've said it before, you know, I like it when, you know, sequels do things differently, and this is definitely the way to do it. Some of them haven't worked, you know, Pitch Perfect 3, I'm looking at you specifically, that one really didn't work. But this did a really good job of being different, but also retaining that same tone. It didn't feel like something that's not a Paddington movie. It felt like a Paddington movie, just a different kind of film. And I think for the most part, it really did work when it came to the writing. And also, speaking of the writing, I thought the characters here, like I said, were also a lot of fun to watch. Knuckles especially, it's just a very entertaining character. Where we end up going with him is actually a very well done arc, and I really like the bond between Paddington and Knuckles. The way that Paddington can turn a bad situation and just make it, you know, just find the good in everything could get annoying, but Ben Whishaw is just so endearing as this character, and he does such a great job, and he's just so charming to watch that you can't help but really fall in love with their relationship. You really can. I really got invested in it. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch, and I could have watched a whole movie of just those two and them making marmalade and, you know, him talking about things his Aunt Lucy taught him. I mean, those scenes are definitely, like I said, the best part of the movie for sure. In regards to flaws, this is definitely not a perfect movie. Like I said, I don't think it's as good as the first movie, and that is because the fact that the focus on Paddington, yes, the first one it was relatively big, but the focus on him in this one is so big that there isn't really as much going on here. You know, we have Hugh Grant's villain, and we have the heist plot. And what I mean by that is that as good as Hugh Bonneville and Sally Hawkins are, they don't really have their own plotline here. Other than looking for Paddington, there isn't really a lot they're given to do, and they do still have some really fun moments. Like, there's this great scene where I'm not going to spoil it, but it involves these two, trying to find information, and Hugh Bonneville calls back to a time period between the two, and that scene was absolutely hilarious. I love the way that was done. Sally Hawkins definitely has some great stuff as well. Coming off the heels of Shape of Water, we really do see how great of an actress she is. But like I said, they don't really have a lot to do in this movie. The kids as well are very much pushed to the side. At first, you think they're gonna have a lot to do, but they don't really give them a ton to do in this one. I did like where they went with the kids. We find out that, the son, he's now more of this emo type character, and the daughter, she's trying to recover from this breakup, and it is definitely fun to watch, but it's just not really focused on a lot, and I do think that they could have given just a little bit more for that subplot to have. I did think that was a bit underused, but especially Peter Capaldi. He is extremely underused this movie. In fact, I don't even know why he really was in this movie, other than the fact that he was in the first movie, and I guess they just wanted to come back because he's not really given much of anything to do. He's kind of just a cop who is trying to make sure that Paddington is the one who, he thinks that Paddington is the one who, is not, should be acquitted, and that he is, in fact, guilty for the murder, and not murder, but he is, in fact, guilty for, the stolen item and everything. I just didn't really feel like he needed to be here. I enjoy Peter Capaldi. He's a very fun actor, but he did not fit in this movie, unfortunately, and I do very much think you could have just cut him out of here and it would have been exactly the same, so that really is something that did bother me a little bit. Also, I will say, as much as I did enjoy Brendan Gleeson and Paddington's, relationship throughout the movie, their initial setup is very rushed, and it did take me a little while to get into it, but once we dived a little bit deeper into their relationship, then I pretty much was in from there. But like I said, as much as I did enjoy it, it does not take away from the fact I did think it was just a little bit rushed there, but luckily, the rest of the film really made up for that. Photography here, once again, is fantastic. It is just so well constructed. Every scene is just so well filmed. This one especially, people say this feels like a Wes Anderson movie, and I definitely did get that feel here, especially when it came to Brendan Gleeson or Hugh Grant's character. The different sort of choices they would make in terms of camera work. It's just very well done, and also a lot of this movie is focusing on this one specific storybook, and that is like Wes Anderson 101. So I don't know if Paul King heard about the Wes Anderson inspirations, but I think he did, and he kind of just turned it up to 11, and it made it that much more enjoyable to watch. So I very much enjoyed the cinematography here. Score, once again, is very well done, and the editing, I also really did enjoy this movie. It never felt too long. No scenes really dragged on for me or anything. Also, the climax of this movie is honestly very well done. There's this very thrilling train sequence, and I did not expect it to get as intense as it really did get. But let's just say they definitely did up the ante from the first movie for sure. So overall, guys, like I said, Paddington 2 is a very enjoyable sequel. I really did enjoy this movie overall. It finds a way to retain the same elements as the first movie, but also find a way to kind of bring new light to the series and make it something different without just retreading elements from the series, which I was definitely very happy to see. I think for the most part, if you enjoy the first one, if you are a fan, I think you will for the most part enjoy yourself watching this one. I honestly really do enjoy the series, and I would like to see another one. I really do. I think this is one of the few family film series that actually does have a lot of potential, and there's still a lot of ideas you could explore, and I'm very much interested in seeing where they do go if they do make a third one at some point. Like I said, guys, I had a lot of fun with Paddington 2 overall, and I'm definitely going to give Paddington 2 a B+. Now, I honestly don't know where this would rank with the first movie because I have not seen that first movie in a long time. I remember giving like an A- or an A, so I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna say it's not as good as the first one, but again, I haven't seen the first one in a long time, so maybe that would change on a rewatch, but either way, guys, that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. You haven't seen it, left your thoughts, and I honestly would recommend it. If you haven't seen the first one, check it out. I know the trailers weren't really too good. The trailers for this one weren't that great either, but I expected that because, like I said, the first one didn't really have that great of trailers, but that's in my review. Hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.